email fairly regularly because that's what we use for the stream
Yeah.
on YouTube. So I think it's either set up for my phone number or it's set up for Bill's phone number. I don't
Set up for
remember.
mine. I put my own stuff in there when I rebuild everything.
Okay.
So
And I can confirm what Ike was saying about being approachable because I used to chat with all of them back in the day on IRC, probably I don't know 6, 7, 8 years ago. They were a riot to talk to. We talked about like our favorite toppings on pizza and
Yeah,
just
Ike
weird
used to
stuff that
be a
had nothing to
regular
do with
on
Linux.
various Jupiter shows.
Yeah.
did you just try to sign in, Majid?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Okay. What number are you getting? 21,
22.
22?
Yeah.
There you go.
But I could see why he might be upset by some of
Oh,
our
another one.
conversations about him. So I feel bad.
Yeah. No, it's a fair enough.
Dale, how did the show go yesterday?
Did you get another one?
I think it was the longest raw recording we've had in 5 years.
Even with me off the show, wow.
I got another 3 numbers.
Well, Eric and I did
Okay, I don't know why that is.
go on
43, 73, 48. Somebody else trying to sign in?
about some other stuff
Not
too.
me.
Oh, well, I ain't going to put shit then. Well, it says UK. Walsall, UK.
Yeah, that would have been me. I don't know why it's sending it again though.
Did you get signed in?
Yeah, I'm signed in.
Okay.
Okay. Dale, what were you saying?
Sorry.
I said, I think I don't know. I can't remember how long the actual recording was. It was a little bit over 2 hours, but I think some
Wow.
of that was not the actual content. We kept on getting sidetracked about things because we were going through the show notes and making some changes to things in like real time. So Eric's gonna have to edit that stuff out. But I think the actual episode we're thinking is going to edit down to about an hour and a quarter, an hour and a half, which is pretty good for two people.
Okay. Yeah. Dale, your microphone doesn't sound very clear to me.
What's your volume sitting at on Mint? Or your gain volume, that is.
Oh, in a mint.
Yeah.
Let me look.
How do I get this to forward to my mintCast email then?
Oh, you got to go into the settings and then, oh, God. Big old convoluted process.
It's a set. There should be a settings forward. No, it's filtering, isn't it? In filtering. Yeah, you have to go into the filter and add a filter.
Remind me
filter
later and
role.
I'll set it up.
Yeah.
I'm at
Well,
100%.
You're at 100%. You're coming through like really, really light. Something ain't right.
Yeah. Something ain't right.
Tap your mic. You're on the wrong mic.
That's what I was trying to tell you earlier. It's preferring my webcam despite this. You're gonna go for a ride.
Whee!
Well, I don't know how you're supposed to share screen. Well, I guess I could share my screen, but in any
You
case,
could, yeah.
Hit the scarlet button.
no, it's wanting the screen or an area.
Switch away from the mic you want it on and then switch back to it. It happens when you get some connects and disconnects.
Okay, I'm trying to get rid of this dialogue. Not now. Go away. Okay, now how do I get everyone?
Oh, I've had another verification thing come up. Bill 58 apparently.
Okay, I clicked.
This
on,
is why I never
There you
get
go.
into the email. You
I,
clicked
I
on.
I accidentally clicked on Moss. Now he's full screen, and I have tiny other videos. How do I get back to the?
Down at the bottom, toggle tile view.
There we go. Okay. So we're going to.
Switch away and switch back. Yep.
And now aren't you glad I got on a half hour early?
I hear the taps. Tap, 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 tap.
Okay.
I don't. Hopefully, it's from the right microphone because you
Say
do have
something.
your webcam microphone close to you.
Well, how do I sound now if my hand cupped over or I'm assuming the microphone is on the webcam?
I don't know. Pull your
Good
hand
question.
away.
Away from the webcam?
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, how do I sound with my hands pulled away from the webcam?
It's better.
It's better. It's really subdued, though. I don't know.
All right. Put the webcam back where it goes, and then tap your microphone again.
It could be a Firefox Jitsi-ism.
It could indeed be a Firefox thing, or it could be. Do you have Audacity brought up?
It's
Have you,
it's open, but it's not running.
have you got the
Okay,
box
click
that says
start monitoring.
enable noise suppression on the Jitsi settings? Have you got that ticked?
In the audio settings,
Yeah.
Where is that?
noise suppression.
You got
Failed to start noise suppression. Stereo. Okay, it went away. Let me read it again.
You are still not using that microphone. How about
Stereo
down there at the
noise
bottom where it
suppression is
says
not currently
audio
supported.
settings next to the microphone?
Want me to install Chromium real quick?
Yeah, that noise suppression won't work on Firefox. I'm not running it.
Let me install.
Well, I just
Chromium real
toggled
quick.
it on for me, so.
Yeah, I toggled mine on too. How do I sound?
You're fine.
How do I sound?
Well, thank you.
Oh, baby.
I tried, but it says failed to start noise suppression. Stereo
You
audio
fine,
noise
Joe.
suppression,
You
blah, blah,
just
blah.
fine.
It doesn't work on Firefox. But
Yeah.
I don't want
I'm
noise suppression.
installing.
Now you got nothing.
Yeah.
Okay, it's installed. Let me switch over to it.
My. For everybody on the live stream, we apologize. You
Live
know,
stream.
Live screaming.
Got it right.
the thing is, we use Linux, and there you go.
Bill uses
Harsh.
Arch.
Harsh, Bill. Very harsh.
No, Arch.
Yes.
No, this is
What I
using
said.
Arch. I'm using Mint to make mintCast. I
I'm
use
doing
Arch
Mint.
to do Arch stuff. Arch-tastic things.
Mm.
I take Arch on the road. That way I can lock those laptops down.
Does that make me and Moss, Betty and Veronica?
No, I'm Jughead.
Mm.
There's Dale.
Oh, the suspense is killing me.
Da-dum,
Okay,
da-dum.
Ouch.
how's this sound?
Like hot garbage?
Well, cold garbage, but yeah.
How about now?
Better.
That's good.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Uno, dos, tres.
It's better.
Better than what it was.
Yeah.
Yes.
Blow into that microphone. There you
It's the
go.
right
We got
mic.
the right mic.
Yep, you got the right mic.
All right.
Yep.
Well, I'm using Chromium then.
Well, don't blow out the diaphragm on it, Dale.
Well, if it's that easy to blow out, then it ain't worth the $400 he paid for it,
Yeah, you got that right. 300, but
or $300. Yeah. He
yeah,
got it.
400 retail.
That's an
Yeah.
expensive blowout.
Ha ha.
I'm not going to say the other word. I'm going to keep it family friendly.
But I was talking about getting your hair done.
Yeah. Oh, getting a blowout. Yeah.
What were you talking about? God,
That's-
family
Gosh,
friendly.
Dale. Family friendly, even though we're
I'm
not
a- hey,
really.
I'm a
Leave it
truck driver.
alone.
I'm a truck driver. What do you expect?
What I want to know is where do we draw the line? Because I want to know, do I really need to hit the explicit button just because somebody says the
sometimes,
odd
you know-
shit here and there?
sooner or later in this show, I am gonna drop some kind of cuss word, so it's better just to leave it there.
They
Or
should
bleep
have
the
a.
cuss word.
They should have like questionably graphic, and then graphic.
Because I've noticed even network
Where's the
television.
PG-13 rating?
PG-14.
We can drop one bomb with a
Yeah,
PG-13.
it's just hard to discern when it's either this or that. I mean, well, what are you? We don't talk about
okay,
overt
guys.
topics. Oops.
So just
We're
remember
getting
that
the show on the road.
Just remember we're in
Wait, there's a show?
2024. Anything can offend anyone.
It
As
seems
you've
that
just
way.
seen.
Right. Yeah.
His was valid.
No, fair enough. But I'm just, have to be careful.
Nothing I would have ever thought of, but then I didn't say it.
I just want to point out Moss is using the Q2U, and he's got the loudest, clearest audio of all of us.
I've got the Q2U.
Or not Moss. The other one.
I'm
Majid.
using Q2U too.
Yeah, but you're low too.
I'm low too. Oh.
Yeah, you're kind of low too.
Well,
Low.
I'll turn it up to 4 o'clock then. How's that?
That's better.
Is that bet?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because you have a tendency of sitting back and talking, and-
I do that, but that's only when I'm not reading.
I just adjusted mine. It's just ending.
Am I still low?
Yes, that's better.
Yeah, you're way low too, Joe.
Okay.
Hold on. Am I still low?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We should be playing that song "Get Low" by
Get low, get low, get low.
the Yin
Tinted
Yang
window,
Twins.
tinted
I
wall.
have no idea what you're talking about.
This.
Oh, ski. Oh, is that better?
There's that explicit button again.
Is that better?
A little better.
I was talking about playing skee ball. What are you talking about?
Oh,
Don't you like
yeah.
skee-ball?
Sure you were.
We have to get low.
Low.
Yeah,
This
so
is-
I've sent him a reply as well.
Yeah, now Majid sounds like he's overtried.
How's
again.
that?
Yeah, Majid,
You're
you,
fine, Joe.
Awesome.
Moss
I
is
can crank
way
it up.
low, but that's because
How's
he's
that?
way.
Turn your gain down, Majid.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, 2 seconds.
No,
Am I
he's
too
fine.
Oh, not on my ears. He's not.
Yeah, I can barely hear you.
loud? You can barely.
Well,
hear me?
that's not my fault.
I'm thinking some of the other audio issues we're
Yes.
having is this distortion because of packets getting munged. Because you have to
Yes.
figure we're going across the Atlantic
Ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-bum.
Ocean and we're going in 4 different directions in the United States.
Yep. WebRTC. Gotta love it.
Now, before we
Well,
start
I
this,
will
so
turn
I
off
know,
the noise suppression then, Bill.
Yeah, I don't use
by
it.
the way.
You're going to
Mine.
get plenty of noise suppression from the microphone itself.
Hello.
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 Is that better?
Yeah, that's a lot better.
What
Awesome.
about mine? Mine okay?
Yeah, yours
Okay,
has been
we
fine,
sound fine.
Majid.
Are we ready for Audacity yet?
Oh, Audacity.
this-
What's Audacity?
That's one of them or internets, isn't it?
now just so I know what I'm doing here, I know I'm going to read the black down to the yellow at the beginning. Everybody's going to read their bit.
No,
Then
no, you read the whole thing.
I read that whole the yellow.
No, you're
No.
get.
No.
You're
No,
right.
he's right.
We read. You read
Yeah.
down to the yellow.
Don't
and-
confuse him, Bill.
Dale, would you prefer if I did the hosting and then you just did the inners?
No, I can host. I mean, I just want to make sure I'm doing it right.
Yeah.
Okay, so you do put a pause between this is episode 434 and this is episode 434.5, and then another short pause right before you say recorded on Sunday, March 31st, 2024,
Okay.
and then I will kick in, and then it'll go to Moss, Bill, Majid, and then back to you. And then you read that next part, and somebody will start picking up the news. I take it nobody wanted that first article, or nobody put their. Oh,
I grabbed
news
my
on.
article. Majid grabbed his article. I stole one from Majid, actually.
I got it.
Do you want to do the first one, or do you want to do the second one, Dale?
I'll do the first one.
I'll do the second one then.
Am I doing
Okay.
any of them? I'm not doing any of them. Okay.
Are there any left?
No, there
Majid,
isn't.
Majid.
There's
Moss.
security and privacy. You could do that one.
Yes,
Okay,
you do
okay.
security and privacy.
I'll do the security and privacy. Okay.
Audacity.
Yes. Yes.
Audacity,
Moss. I wanna
what's-
make sure I
What's
don't
odd?
screw up here. All right. So then
Screwy
just read-
Audacity.
so I read all that. and then I read the news, and then somebody starts off with that, and I just
Mhm.
basically read the bold print.
Well, yeah, you'll say, and now into the news, and then Bill will take over, and then me, and then yeah, on and on. And then when we transition again, you'll do security and privacy, and the
And then-
first article is yours, and
Okay.
you'll read that one.
Okay, I got it.
Yep.
When
we're good
when
from
you're
there.
not talking, hit the mute switch.
Yeah, I got it.
Are we ready?
Huh? Ready for what?
Audacity.
We're just
Oh.
making sure Dale's up to speed because
Audacity.
it's better to do it now than halfway into the show. My Audacity is ready.
I'm ready.
Okay. Majid,
Ready?
Bill,
Ready?
3, 2, 1, record. Well, there's Tony's 25 seconds. Do we really need that much anymore?
Oh,
It doesn't hurt. So.
Yeah.
Okay, then. 0 time. 3, 2, 1, 0.
Zero.
Sound pretty good. Take it away, Dale.
I have to remember not to drink too much water. Welcome to mintCast, the podcast by the Linux Mint community for all users of Linux. This is episode 434. This is episode 434.5. Recorded on Sunday, March 31st of 2024.
Bringing the fun. I'm Joe.
Lowering the IQ in the room, I'm Moss.
Going vroom vroom in a big truck, I'm Bill.
Launching off, I'm Majid.
I'm Dale, and I invited myself to the podcast. First up in the news, Red Hat announces Nova graphics driver for NVIDIA GPUs, Blender 4.1 released. Makulu Linux brings Lindows back this time with AI, and the end of ext2. In security and privacy, backdoor found in widely used Linux utility breaks encrypted SSH connections. Suspected Russian data wiper, acid pour, malware targeting Linux x86 devices. Then, in our wanderings, Moss needs some salt for his new battery. Bill goes vroom vroom in a big truck. Joe is getting steamed. Majid chillaxes. And I'm scaling my NAS. In our innards section, using the Linux Mint backup tool and backing up applet settings. And finally, the feedback and a couple suggestions. And now on to the news.
Well done. I actually like the pauses because it makes it easier to edit. Red Hat announces Nova, a Rust-based GSP-only graphics driver for NVIDIA GPUs. And this is from 9to5 Linux via Londoner. Red Hat announced earlier this week that the company has started work on a new open-source graphics driver for NVIDIA GPUs written in Rust called Nova. Designed as the successor of the Nuvo open-source driver for GSP firmware-based NVIDIA graphics cards, the Nova graphics driver is a GSP, that is GPU system processor, only driver entirely written in the Rust programming language, and it aims to be a lot more simple and easy to maintain than Nuvo while benefiting from more memory safety offered by Rust. And I quote, "With Nova, we see the chance to significantly decrease the complexity of the driver compared to Nuvo for mainly two reasons, said Danilo Krumik, senior software engineer at Red Hat. First, Nuvo's historic architecture, especially around NVIF/NVKM, is rather complicated and inflexible and requires major work to solve certain problems. And second, with a GSP-only driver, there is no need to maintain compatibility with pre-GSP code. With Nova, Red Hat hopes to contribute to Rust efforts in the Linux kernel and also attract more developers to get involved in this open source graphics driver for NVIDIA GPUs. Red Hat wants to develop its Nova graphics driver upstream in the Linux kernel, starting with just a driver stub that only makes use of some basic Rust abstractions. But the first need to deal with is the missing C binding abstractions for integral kernel infrastructure. More details about Nova and the ongoing work to upstream the graphics driver can be found in the mailing list announcement. But it's not only Red Hat that works on a drop-in replacement for Nuvo, as Collabora recently promoted their open-source Vulkan-based graphics driver, NVK, for NVIDIA GPUs to the stable channel, which will be available as part of the upcoming Mesa 24.1 graphics stack. Both Nova and NVK are more than welcome replacements for Nuvo, which is old and not actively maintained these days. The ultimate goal here, at least for NVK, is not only to provide a basic graphics driver for NVIDIA GPUs on systems where NVIDIA proprietary graphics driver is not installed by default, but to provide Linux users with a better replacement for NVIDIA's driver for gaming. You know, that NVIDIA driver, the only thing the Nuvo driver, the only thing I've ever used that for was to get a minimum viable system up and running so that I could install the binary driver, which gives you all the use of the components that you paid for with an NVIDIA driver. What do you think? Do you think that we're going to be moving to a Rust-based reality before long, to where that's going to be?
It does seem that everything is being done in Rust nowadays, isn't it?
It feels like in 10 years, Rust will be as common in our space as C is right now.
Yeah.
I think once more programmers get the hang of using Rust, because what I've heard in the 40-some podcasts that I listen to every month, that the sense is even experienced C programmers and C++ programmers and ones that did a lot of Python and even, like Java, it's a big learning curve, apparently. Because I've done my own compiling stuff. I don't do as much as I used to, but I've tried compiling some Rust projects, and it comes up with like a very vague, obscure error message, and then I go and look up what the error message, and it's pretty much like, well, it's almost like a Venn diagram. Is today Tuesday? Yeah. Are you wearing blue pants? Yes. Did you eat egg salad? Yes. Oh, the reason is because you cannot eat egg salad on Tuesday. You can only eat it on Wednesday and Fridays, and you need to be wearing black pants.
I can say I haven't used Rust, and from the sounds of what you just said, I don't plan to.
I've heard it described as learning the whole thing all over again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty much like starting at square one.
It reminds me of something one of my bosses said, that there's many things that you can do standing in a canoe, but not many that you should.
That's a good one.
Okay, if we're moving on, then Blender 4.1 officially released with quality of life and performance improvements. This is from 9 to 5 Linux. The Blender Foundation released Blender 4.1 as a new update to its powerful, free, open source, and cross-platform 3D graphics computer software for GNU, Linux, macOS, and Windows systems. Arriving more than 4 months after Blender 4.0, the Blender 4.1 release is here to introduce quality of life improvements and performance enhancements all across the board to make Blender more useful and reliable, especially for modelers or animators. Highlights of Blender 4.1 include a new file handler API that lets Dev extend traditional file import operators with drag and drop behavior throughout the Blender UI, adding support for the Alembic, Collada, Grease Pencil SVG, OBJ, OpenUSD, PLY, and STL formats within the 3D viewport and outliner areas. Also new is GPU accelerated hardware support for open image denoise when using GPU rendering in the 3D viewport, supporting NVIDIA GTX 16XX, NVIDIA Titan 5, and all NVIDIA RTX GPUs, Intel GPUs, and XE APG architecture or newer, as well as Apple Silicon. For now, AMD GPUs are not supported due to stability issues. Blender 4.1 adds a new soft fall-off option to point and spotlights to make the lights render the same as in Blender 3.6 LTS and earlier versions. The light texture radius acts as a blurring factor for the projected texture when the new soft fall-off option is applied, and it will be directly visible on the spherical light source when the new soft fall-off option is not applied. Tons of other new features. Check the link in the show notes. You guys use Blender at all?
I've opened it up one time, started sucking my thumb, and ran for my mom.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to, but to be completely honest, I don't really need to, so I haven't.
And how good is your mom in Blender, Bill?
She's better than Blender.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, she makes me pudding.
I'm sorry. Okay.
Next.
Yeah. So the reason that makes me laugh is because being the sad guy that I am, I was listening back to our last Linux OTC episode, and your wife got a mention within the first 5 minutes, and now we've got your mum getting mentioned within the first 10 minutes. I'm telling you, are you trying to say you should just take over and make this the Hauser cast or something?
Ah,
It's a family affair.
it is.
Anyway, I think I have a feeling we should swiftly move on.
Right on.
All right, then. So, Lindows returns with advanced AI to revamp the Makulu Linux lineup. So, this is from Linux Insider. Lindows, a sidelined Makulu Linux distro that made an ideal Windows to Linux crossover, welcomes a new year with artificial intelligence and virtual camera stuff. Makulu Linux developer Jacques Montague Raymer, I think, had paused Lindows over development issues caused by constant upstream changes in the Cinnamon desktop environment. Constant upstream change. Okay, fine. With those issues resolved within the Cinnamon developer community, he decided to bring it back. This re-release of Lindows reflects the distribution's mantra of always pushing boundaries. The hands-on experience with the beta versions assures that the return will not disappoint, even if the notion of an AI-powered Linux seems scary. So far, AI has not been an integral part of Linux, Windows, or Mac. Ooh, Windows kind of. Copilot button is everywhere. In some OSs, AI is accessible via limited applications and web browsers without being built into the desktop core. This is what makes Lindows so special. Raymer first dabbled in AI with the release of Makulu Linux Max distro in June. The writer of the article has been a fan of the various evolving Makulu Linux's releases since the distribution's creation in January 2019. Ooh, I think that's wrong. I'm sure Makulu Linux is older than that. The introduction of AI in Raymer's newest distro Max impressed the writer. Raymer's innovative customizations, such as buffering the Cinnamon desktop with AI-driven features, make the new Lindows an irresistible Linux experience, allegedly. His clever tweaking of AI and the virtual webcam features are too much to ignore. These two concepts already exist in the Makulu Linux Shift and Max distros. Still, their more advanced development and expansion there will be primary attractions for new users to this uniquely different Linux operating system. Raymer's approach to integrating AI into the Linux desktop is an interesting story. A quick overview of Lindows. At first glance, the Cinnamon desktop appears familiar, but is modified with the addition of the Conky calendar and system monitoring views. These enhancements give a desktop a non-traditional Cinnamon appearance. The underlying theme of Windows has always been to give users a familiar MS Windows look and feel as they transition to Linux. Depending on how much of Windows style you want, you can select from a variety of appearance options to suit your comfort zones. And there's more in the link in the show notes. So I remember the original Makulu Linux. It must have been 2014, easily.
Well, I know Jacques Raymer is from South Africa. The last I knew, he was actually working in Vietnam.
Okay. Yeah, because I remember he was from South Africa as well, hence the name Makulu. It means something in Zulu. I can't
Yeah, a
remember
lot
what.
of his design choices show that too.
And if I remember correctly, when he first started it, it was based on GNOME, I think. But as I said, that was a long time ago. It just seems interesting that it's kind of come back. I think AI is the buzzword of 2024, and everybody's going to be trying to get the AIs onto their thing. And so I think the developers probably thought the same thing as well.
Majid, I think you're right about the age. I'm not finding a start date, but I see an article here on ZDNet from 2015 saying the latest release of Makulu Linux has two major things going for it, blah, blah, blah. So it was based on 1404 right at that time.
Yeah. Because I remember playing distro hopping on it back in the day. So,
yes, I have played with it a few times.
Yeah, well, I'm going to have to give this new version a look then, aren't I? Okay, Moss, your turn next.
All right. The journey of Linux's ext file system comes to an end from Linuxiac. Developed as a successor to the original extended file system, ext, ext2 was introduced in January 1993, engineered to overcome the limitations of its predecessor and the FAT file system, which was widely used in DOS and Windows environments then. Over the past 3 decades, ext2 has been an integral part of every Linux kernel version, serving as the go-to file system for Linux distributions until the turn of the millennium around 2002-2003. However, like all technologies, ext2 has reached its twilight, giving way to newer, more advanced alternatives. In that case, in the face of the ext3 file system, the transition from ext2 as a default file system to more advanced file systems like ext3 happened at different times for various Linux distributions. Debian started using ext3 as the default in Debian Sarge 3.1 release, which was June 2005. Red Hat introduced ext3 as the default option. My tongue gets wrapped around my eye teeth. I can't see what I'm saying. Red Hat introduced ext3 as a default option in version 7.2, which was released in October 2001. Slackware transition to using ext3 as a recommended option came with Slackware 9.1, which is September 2003. SUSE Linux started offering ext3 with SUSE Linux 9.0 in October 2003 as an option, but ext2 was still widely used in earlier versions. Why are we taking this swift journey through history? It's because ext2 is on the verge of retirement after 3 decades. The ext2 file system has been marked as deprecated in the soon-to-be-released Linux kernel version 6.9, which is anticipated to arrive around mid-May due to a significant limitation, its inability to support dates beyond January 19th, 2038. This decision is based on the file system's design, which does not accommodate inode timestamps extending beyond this year 2038 threshold. The year 2038 problem, similar to the much discussed Y2K issue, arises from the storage of time values as 32-bit integers. These integers will overflow early that year, leading to potential data inaccuracies and system failures. In response, the Linux kernel developers have introduced a deprecated keyword within the kernel parameter description for ext2. This move cautions users about the file system's data limitations and nudges them towards more contemporary alternatives that guarantee longevity and stability. The recommendation for current ext2 users, if there are any nowadays, is to transition to the ext4 driver. This driver offers backward compatibility with ext2, ensuring a seamless migration for users. It accommodates file systems without journals or extents, providing a versatile solution for a wide array of use cases. Furthermore, ext4 addresses the timestamp limitation head-on by supporting larger timestamps, given that the file system is created with inodes of at least 256 bytes. Of course, labeling ext2 as deprecated raises no concerns. In practice, ext2 serves more as a relic of the past than a file system in active use. Additionally, even the successor ext3 has been virtually entirely replaced by ext4, which now stands as one of the primary file systems that most Linux distributions depend on. Currently, there is no comment regarding the duration ext2 will remain in future Linux kernels marked as deprecated before its eventual retirement. Although this change won't occur in the near future, the initial move toward its phase-out has already begun.
Anybody been using AEXT2?
Well, it's been a while, but I used to use it if I was going to install something on a thumb drive or something like that, because I wanted an extended file system, but I didn't want the journaling, because I didn't know you could turn the journaling off in ext4, but according to this, apparently you can. But that's not a use case that I've needed in a while, because the thumb drives nowadays are, some of these Samsungs are about as fast as a SSD, so it hasn't been an issue. But
well, me being me, I probably ran ext2 a lot longer than it needed to be. I hate change, but I'm all on ext4 now.
yeah,
I don't even remember using ext3.
It feels like that was around for like 5 minutes, and then ext4 was the thing. And
Yeah, the type of thing you use that one time, and then ext4 came out, and
that's what it felt like anyway.
Let's move along to security and privacy.
What's this one? You want me to do it?
I can take it.
Go ahead.
Backdoor found in widely used Linux utility breaks encrypted SSH connections. From Ars Technica via Londoner. Researchers have found a malicious backdoor in a compression tool that made its way into widely used Linux distributions, including those from Red Hat and Debian. The compression utility, known as XZ or XZ utils, introduced the malicious code in versions 5.6.0 and 5.6.1, according to Andres Freund, the developer who discovered it. There are no known reports of those versions being incorporated into any production releases for major Linux distributions, but both Red Hat and Debian reported that recently published beta releases used at least one of the backdoored versions. Specifically, in Fedora 40 and Fedora Rawhide and Debian testing unstable and experimental distributions. A stable release of Arch Linux is also affected. That distribution, however, isn't used in production systems. Because the backdoor was discovered before the malicious versions of XZ utils were added to production versions of Linux, it's not really affecting anyone in the real world. Will Dorman, a senior vulnerability analyst at security firm Analogence. Okay, that sounds better. Said in an online... yeah, Doctor Who. Said in an online interview, but that's only because it was discovered early due to bad actor sloppiness. Had it not been discovered, it would have been catastrophic to the world. Several people, including 2 Ars readers, reported that multiple apps, including the Homebrew package manager of macOS, rely on the backdoored 5.6.1 versions of the XZ util. Those apps, one user said, included AOM, Cairo, FFmpeg, GCC, glib or glib, Harfbuzz, I guess, JPEG XL, Leptonica, libarchive, libtiff, libcms2, nuppy, openblas, openjpeg, openvino, pango, python at version 3.11, python at version 3.12, tesseract, webp, ytdlp, and z standard. And I want to say that we need to come up with better open source names. The other user said Homebrew has now rolled back the utility to version 5.4.6. The first versions of the backdoor were introduced in a February 23rd update that added obfuscated code.
Obfuscated.
Obfuscated code. Tell that to my tongue. Officials from Red Hat said in an email, an update the following day included a malicious install script that injected itself into functions used by SSHD, the binary file that makes SSH work. The malicious code has resided only in the archived releases known as tarballs, which are released upstream. So-called Git code available in repositories aren't affected, although they do contain second-stage artifacts allowing the injection during build time. In the event of obfuscated code introduced on February 23rd is present. The artifacts in the Git version allow the backdoor to operate. The malicious changes were submitted by JIA-T75, one of the two main XZ util developers with years of contributions to the project. Given the activity over several weeks, the committer is either directly involved or there was some quite severe compromise of their system, an official with distributor OpenWall wrote in an advisory. Quote, unfortunately, the latter looks like the less likely explanation given the communicated on various lists and fixes, end quote, provided in recent updates. Those updates and fixes can be found here,
At the link in the show notes.
Okay, link in the show notes.
At the various links in the show notes.
Can I just make the point that is actually quite a really poorly written article? I mean, it's very important, but it's hard enough to get your head around.
And
forget about your tongue.
Yeah. It's almost like anybody can get a job at Ars Technica. Ooh, right into the show. Yeah. Majid at mintCast.org.
Okay.
Let's let Dale finish the article.
Oh, okay. I thought we were done.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Yes, there's more.
We can skip the rest of it. We've covered the points.
You know, like I've said before, Arch uses the XC compression stuff for their packages. Their actual installable packages are XC. The init image is done with XC. The front page of archlinux.org begins with update your systems now. Pretty big deal for Arch users.
Well, it has been found since this article that there was one guy running XC utils and he got totally burned out and overworked, and he invited other people to come in and work on it. And this one person said, "Oh yeah, I'll help." And apparently the one person has been a malicious actor from the beginning.
So, I mean, what lesson is to be taken from this, honestly, that we can actually...
Open source sucks.
Yeah. It's unfortunate that there is... Well, yeah, it makes it hard when you pontificate on open source, but then Shut up. But then,
This
Watch
stuff
your
happens
language, Bill.
in closed source too. So
yeah.
this is just one guy that did something, and people were checking on it, which means that it made it into testing. But that's what testing is for.
Yeah.
The main
So-
reason they found it is it literally slowed the system down.
And that's kind of the point. This kind of thing would have happened in closed source, and nobody would have ever known. But since it was open source, out in the world, and everybody could see it and witness it, and then talk about it
surely
like we are.
But surely that's a good thing then, yeah?
Yeah,
you know,
It's an
because-
advantage.
Yeah,
It's-
the open source is fixed in plain sight, where Microsoft, not to call them out, but I'm calling them out, would have 3 months of press releases how they're going to fix it, and then another 6 months for them to fix it.
but
Yeah.
isn't
Or
it
Apple
true
would
though
say
that
that the problem doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist.
Look,
yeah,
look,
it
look.
does exist, and we fixed it.
Yep.
Look, with Microsoft, with Apple, if this had been found in testing, it never would have been made public. And this is
And it wouldn't.
essentially what happened here. This was in testing. Yes, there are some people that use testing as production, but
So imagine you're a regular person, just for a minute. I know,
It's
and
very hard for me to think of myself as a regular person.
I know, I get it, and it's
Which one of my personalities is it that you want to be normal?
the one on the right.
So, Majid, you are an irregular person?
I'm atypical.
I
Ah.
take Metamucil, and it helps with that a little bit. But
All right.
you're a regular person, and you hear open source, you hear all of these different problems only because it's out in the open, and it's open collaboration, open source, all of those great words, and we appreciate it for all those things. But then they never hear about anything wrong with anything, Microsoft or Google or Facebook or what have you, Meta, and
Even when it does get out, it takes them 2, 3, 4 months to come out with a fix for it. Open source is out there in days.
right. So I mean, you can see how it would make us look like, it kind of makes us look like fools when we try to showcase the benefits of open source. I don't know. I get it sometimes from people, because I do have people I talk to about this, and they go, and a few of them will go and read the news and hear about all these things.
Okay.
Not all, most of them no, but some of them will.
I would say the real normies would have no idea what open source is. The real.
Oh, that's
normies.
correct.
Yeah. It's going to be people who have just enough knowledge to be dangerous, who are the ones who are going to kind of look and go, "This isn't a great idea. We should be spending thousands of pounds on a MacBook instead."
Yep, and I
don't
need
you
to
do
start.
that anyway, Majid?
Actually, I found that it's been a year since I got rid of that MacBook. But anyway, moving swiftly on.
God, that's our lives flying by the way, because it feels like
Tell
it
me
wasn't that
about
long ago. Moving
Life,
on.
what life? What's a life? Moving on. Suspected Russia data wiping acid pour malware targeting Linux x86 devices. From Hacker News via Londoner, and Londoner actually wondered whether we should actually put this in the show. A new variant of a data wiping malware called Acid Rain has been detected in the wild that's specifically designed for targeting Linux x86 devices. The malware, dubbed Acid Pour, is compiled for Linux x86 devices. Sentinel-1's Juan Andres Guerrero Saada said in a series of posts on X. The new variant is an ELF binary compiled for x86, not MIPS, and while it refers to similar devices / strings, it's largely a different code base, Guerrero Saada noticed. Acid Rain first came to light in the early days of the Russo-Ukrainian war, with the malware deployed against KA-SAT modems from U.S. satellite company Viasat. An ELF binary compiled for MIPS architectures, it is capable of wiping the file system and different known storage devices by recursively iterating over common directories for most Linux distributions. The cyber attack was subsequently attributed to Russia by the Five Eyes nations, along with Ukraine and the European Union. Acid Pour, as the new variant is called, is designed to erase content from RAID arrays and unsorted block image UBI file systems through the addition of the file paths like /dev/dm-xx and /dev/ubixx, respectively. It's currently not clear who the intended victims are, although Sentinel-1 said it notified Ukrainian agencies. The exact scale of the attacks is presently unknown. The discovery once again underscores the use of wiper malware to cripple targets, even as threat actors are diversifying their attack methods for maximum impact. Quote, this variant is a more powerful acid rain variant covering more hardware and operating system types, end quote, warned Rob Joyce, Director of Cybersecurity at the U.S. National Security Agency. The development also comes as the OnLab Security Intelligence Center, ASEC, revealed that the threat actors are launching brute force and dictionary attacks against poorly secured Linux systems to create backdoor accounts for persistent access. Quote, attackers may employ various attack methods for adding new accounts, including changing the password of the existing root account and registering an SSH key to log in without entering a password, ASEC said. Such access is then abused to install various malware strains such as ransomware, cryptocurrency, I can't read it, Conjo, cryptocurrency miners, and DDoS bots such as Tsunami Shellbot and the Kono DODA miner.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I
Sure.
wanted to ask was, why did Londoner not think this would be a useful news article? Because I thought it was quite useful.
Mention of the Russian-Ukrainian war and that it might have been targeted at Ukraine might cause a problem in our podcast being received on past a certain boundary, I believe.
I think we passed that boundary many, many years ago with most of the political things that we've said.
Well,
yeah,
that's
So,
true, but we never actively said anything anti-Russia or
I mean, I can say something
we've
anti-Russia
said a
if you
few
like.
pro-Ukraine things from time to time, but we're not this blatant that it looks like it is an attack from Russia on
I think
Ukraine.
it would be easy to infer how we all feel about that whole thing.
Yeah,
First of
I think
all,
so.
this isn't our news article. So
No, it's not.
I-
We just
it-
pass it on.
right. And it feels like valid information because we all run Linux and this is targeting Linux.
Yeah.
Now, whether it was designed for a specific location or not, that doesn't mean that it can't be used against us, and we should be informed.
Well put, Joe. Hear, hear.
Right.
Wow, that was like.
So that's it for security.
Are you feeling all right, Joe?
It was very insightful, very brooding.
I think I'm running a fever.
Yeah. who are you and what have you done with Joe?
Fever.
Take us on.
So now let's go on to our bi-weekly wanderings. So take it away, Bill.
Right. Yeah. So for the past few weeks, I've been going vroom vroom in a big truck. That's 3 times it's been said now, I think, at least twice. And here comes the explanation. This past weekend was the annual Mid-America Trucking Show in Louisville, Kentucky. Now, this is the biggest truck show in the country, if not in the world. And it is a absolute circus of an event. 3 Fat Truckers was there. We had a booth and everything. The reason I wasn't on the last recording of mintCast was because I was working the entire duration of the weekend to make up for the lost time to be incurred during the show. We took off Wednesday morning for Louisville. And Louisville is about 3.5 hours from Fort Wayne. 4 more realistically, but I made it 3.5 because I just wasn't having it. We arrived at about noon, which was plenty of time to set up our booth and get checked into the hotel room. Setting up went smoothly, which gave me a false sense of security that would indeed fail me the next day when we would begin recording. Thursday morning began with me firing up my HP Omen laptop, which is the machine that I've used for all of the shows up to that point, and indeed was the powerhouse machine I used as a daily driver up until I started on mintCast. It runs Arch, by the way. I'm not sure if I've ever mentioned that in the past, but it does.
I don't know. If...
You
Arch
you
Linux.
run Arch?
Arch Linux, yeah,
Really?
true
You
story.
run Arch? Oh wow!
For some time now, in fact, yeah.
No way! Never had any idea.
I can't believe I forgot to tell you that.
Yeah.
I think that laptop could be a bad omen.
I think it might be.
Available for weddings, birthdays, bar mitzvahs.
Be in the area all day, kids. This laptop has the Optimus graphics setup that everyone knows and loves so much. The last couple of years has seen the improvements, the enabled good, transparent usage of dual graphics setup. Normally, everything works well and there's no problems. This was not to be the case during the show. When it comes to OBS Studio, I use the Flatpak because that's the easiest way to install the software with the browser plugin that is needed to stream Video Ninja to the recording. On Arch, you can also install it through the AUR, but it means you have to compile the whole thing every time there's an update, which, yeah, no. The problem is that it means you want to use if you want to use the NVENC hardware encoding that works through the NVIDIA card, you have to have the NVIDIA driver in the Flatpak, or you have to have that supplemental Flatpak that contains the NVIDIA firmware. When I hit the record button, I kept getting the error saying that NVENC failed and I needed to update the driver, which in the case of Flatpak just wasn't possible. You get what you get. I went into a panic mode, eventually opting to use VA API on the less powerful NVIDIA or Intel video SoC. It worked, though the output was not as good as it would be if I was able to use the NVENC setting. I got through the show with less than stellar results, and by the end, and it's worth saying we did 34 interviews during the course of that truck show. I was ready to put the laptop on the railroad tracks that runs behind my house when I got home. But that hasn't happened. When I got back home, in fact, it occurred to me I should try to remove the Flatpak in favor of the repo version, which will have direct access to all the necessary APIs that you don't have with the container layer. Wouldn't you know it, it worked. NVENC worked as it should, with the added benefit of Intel QuickSync, which I could have used had I didn't have access to the NVENC. If I wanted to use QuickSync instead, it would have been less power hungry. The moral of this story is, as it always has been, when in doubt, ditch the universal package and go with the distro maintained version. Maybe one day we'll live in a world where this isn't the case. I can't say we're anywhere near that place. Anywhere near a place where stuff like Flatpak, Snap, and Amp Image work for everyone every time. Anyway, all the interviews are up on YouTube, so if anybody's interested, you can go view them there. We also recorded episode 54 while we were there, so check that out if you'd be so inclined.
So can I just check something? You were running Arch on the device, right?
Yeah, in
And
production, by the way, folks.
Yeah, and you were looking for the driver through the AUR, but it wasn't there. So then you looked for the Flatpak, and then there was a problem with the Flatpak.
So the Flatpak was already installed because I'm using the Flatpak version on here because that's the easiest way to get it with the browser plugin, where you actually have an embedded Chromium browser that you can which is what you would normally use to pipe the Video Ninja stream. It's a lot less janky method than capturing the the screen, because it's not a plugin that can just be installed by dropping in the something into the plugin folder like all the other OBS plugins. The other option is to install it from the AUR, which means you have to compile the whole thing, and OBS is a bit of a behemoth to compile.
Basically, the issue here seems less that it's about where you got the package from, and more that it's Arch.
Well, I mean, if I was using,
I'm just saying, because I mean, if you were, say, on one of the Ubuntu's or Mint or Fedora or whatever, and you know, because the AUR is not the officially maintained
but again, that's not what
distro
I was trying to
repositories.
use. I was trying to use the Flatpak, and the
Yeah,
Flatpak.
no. But what I'm saying is that when you look at a lot of these projects, like so Ubuntu obviously has a big hand in snaps, canonical and all that sort of stuff. Fedora has put all their weight behind Flatpak. Mint has, as have quite a few other places. Now, because there isn't a specific Arch-based distro that is a reference in the same way that Ubuntu is, or Debian is, or Mint is,
You mean
or
besides
Fedora.
Arch?
Well, yeah, because I mean, it's.
I think I know what you're getting at,
Yeah.
but you keep in mind that once I ditched the universal package and I went with Arch's standard repo version, everything worked as it should.
No. Yeah, no. So that's
So-
and I agree with that. What I'm saying is that there's nobody out there trying to make sure that the universal package format works well with that distro.
I think the point behind these things is that it shouldn't matter what the underlying host operating system is. These things are supposed to work no matter, as long as they've got the underlying infrastructure to run
Fair
the
point,
universal
fair point.
packaging.
I'm going to have to agree with Bill on this one.
You
Yeah,
know.
fair point. Actually, that's a fair point.
But like I said, once I ditched all that and went with the, but
So-
it's if you're going to blame it on anybody, blame it on NVIDIA. Is the point, because NVIDIA's always been a ridiculous thing to try to get up and working, and if you do and then you change something, then you got to get it back up and working again. And on Arch, you're always changing something, so it's just a reality I've had to live with.
No,
with
that's
that
a fair point.
particular
Yeah.
machine. But
Yeah,
I
you're
mean,
right.
the only thing I've ever used it for was the NVENC, just so that I could have the CPU to do all the other things, But like I said, got through it. Everything's fine now. I'm not going to put my laptop on the railroad tracks, although that would be kind of fun to watch. It's been a long time since I put anything back there. Last week I purchased an Elgato Stream Deck, which I intended to play with, get working well, and add it to today's show as a check this out. Unfortunately, I think I'm just going to talk a little bit about it here, as it's just not as interesting as one would wish. The truth is that the device is simply a glorified, as Joe said, hotkeys device, albeit a really well-designed hotkeys device. That is, if you're on Windows. The main problem with the device is that there's no officially supported software for Linux, though there has been 2 projects on GitHub, one abandoned and another which stood up to take its place. It's a bit of a pain to set up, because there's UDEV stuff that you've got to set up to give this thing machine access to the device. And it doesn't seem as though you can just leave it plugged in, because sometimes the device is accessible at boot time and sometimes it's not. Sometimes it'll work when it boots up plugged in. Sometimes you got to unplug it, start the software, and then plug it in. I don't know. The best way to ensure it will work is just to plug it in after the machine is booted and you've executed the background process to give the device access to the commands you've set up on it. I can only imagine when Mint switches to Wayland full stop, the headaches will start all over again, just because of devices and commands and all that, The device is okay, but I can't in good conscience recommend it to folks who have simple to intermediate streaming and recording needs. Most of what it does can be easily achieved with keyboard shortcuts. That being said, if you do a lot of complicated scene transitioning with OBS Studio, then perhaps it would be worthwhile, but for my needs, it was a little bit superficial. It was I probably could have bought another fancy microphone instead.
Yeah, well, I've made hotkey keypads before, and yeah, they're going to do the same thing as that Elgato in Linux. In most circumstances, as long as you can go in and set up the shortcuts for those keys and program your keys on your keypad. So you spent what, 150 on
Yeah,
that
about that.
Stream Deck, and I can replicate that for less than $15.
Well, the one cool thing, and here it is right here. I can get it in the camera view. It's not all that big, but you can like set it up in pages where you can set all these buttons up and then switch to a new page, and then you got a whole new array of buttons. The one cool thing about it though is that you can go and get JPEGs or PNGs from the internet, copy paste into the config thing and put your own pictures there. You can write your own text because it recognizes it kind of as a video device as such, I guess, because it renders anything you want on the buttons. So that's kind of cool, but I mean,
Yeah, that's something I can't replicate. I'll admit that.
Yeah, but I mean, how useful is that? I don't know. It's probably more for somebody that's got a lot of fancy lit up digital effects that they want people to see more than anything else. I'm not bad mouthing the product because it is something that works as it should. I wish that there was better software for Linux, but there have been people that have got software out there, and if you're willing to do a little bit of futzing around, then you can get it working, but it's just not, at this point in my life, it's not real useful.
Okay, on to me. I've been using my Steam Deck a lot. Cough, cough. I use Arch, mostly to play Skyrim. I've been enjoying relearning all the fun things about the game that I used to know. Plus, there always seems to be more to do in the game, especially since all the updates have come in and they've got a new version out now. I also decided to purchase the Halo Master Chief Collection on the Steam sale, which means that I got all 3 of the original trilogy for less than $10. I do remember playing them some, but I don't think I ever really dedicated any time to it. I haven't played it a lot, but I have played it enough to know that it plays really well on the Steam Deck and is easy to control. None of the trouble with aiming that I have had with other first-person shooters like Borderlands 2. Also on the Steam Deck, I've been testing out Sunshine and Moonlight. It is an alternative to like Steam Link, Steam streaming. It's actually pretty good and has less overhead and less latency than the inbuilt Steam streaming. I've also used it to do some desktop sharing, and though it will not spin off its own desktop, I still find it useful because on a dual screen setup like I have in the garage, it will not try to show both screens at the same time, but will switch between the 2 screens depending on where the mouse is. That I can work with. Now that works on the Steam Deck, being able to go back and forth between the 2 different screens, but it did not work on my phone. And there is a version of Moonlight that is on Android, but it does share the screen really well, low latency and high quality. I also installed it on my VM to give it a test. I had to switch to a bridge network mode, but it did work well, even though it broke a lot of the other things that I had set up in regards to the VPN in that VM. So I switched it back to NAT, and I'll continue looking for a different solution. But like I said, it did work well when it was set up on the bridge network. I also tested out a program called Bada Boom Books, which is a command line tool used to help organize an audiobook shelf library. You enter in the command and the path to the book you want to organize, and it will search the web for the correct ISBN, and then you have to verify it, and it will do all the updating and create a metadata file that the audio bookshelf will recognize if you ever have to re-index everything all over again, like I've had to do several times now. You can put multiple books into the command, but you still have to do each book individually instead of an entire folder at one time. I ended up using a combination of tools to try and make things a little bit easier. First, I would choose an author, that I wanted to organize, and then I would use Find-D to get all the directories along the path of that particular author, and then I would export all of that to a file, which I would then open in Gedit. Then I would use Find and Replace to get rid of all the line ends and replace with a quote space quote. Then add the quote to the start and the end of that section. And then on another page, I would have the command and the modifiers ready to go. I would paste the paths into the command and then copy the whole thing and paste onto the command line. This worked pretty well, but I did need to install some tools so that Python could see the clipboard correctly, which is how the command knows what the book identifier is. The script would pop up a page with the search information in your browser, and then you would right-click the page that was correct and click copy, and then the next page would pop up. Important to have the browser window next to the command line prompt to make sure that the information matches, that the book it's trying to say is in the path is the same as the book that you're about to copy the ISBN for. It took some trial and error, but I was able to make it work. The problem got to be that even though all the information was correctly stored and should have updated the books the next time I force matched the whole library, is that it didn't. It just didn't. I was able to get the matches after that, after I then went to each individual book and clicked match, and then the ISBN would pop up. And that was the only thing that would pop up. So that did make that a little bit easier. So that did show that the script was getting the information where it needed to go, but Audio Bookshelf was not able to always do it on its own. It should have been able to do that with little to no problems. Maybe the issue is the scale of my library. Running the match command, while it did not see the ones that I was watching for, always showed that some were updated. Now, I picked up, okay, I was reading something there, and then it just jumped. I picked up a Samsung Galaxy Watch 5 at a really good price, so I've been playing around some with that. I have not found anything to complain about in regards to that, but I can say that, okay, something was wrong with my English when I wrote that. It's a good watch. It's been doing what I need it to. With getting the new watch, I needed a new charging stand, so I decided to go on Thingiverse and see what was available. After some looking around, nothing quite met my needs. I wanted something to hold my watch and my phone. I was able to find some watch stands that would accept the Watch 5 charger, but not that would also take the fast wireless charger for the S24U. But I did find an OpenSCAD version of a wireless charger stand, so I was able to modify that to take the larger wireless pad and the USB-C cable after a couple of prints. A little bit of tweaking here and there. The 15-watt ones are actually like 100 millimeters wide. Then I imported that and the watch stand into Tinkercad and merged them into one print with some plastic between them. I'm mostly happy with how it turned out. I probably should have added a little bit more space between the two parts to make some more room for the band on the watch. And I probably should have tested the watch stand, which has a bit more tolerance around the watch charger than I would like. But I can modify the STL next time that I print it. Last night, I had some trouble sleeping, so I ended up doing some 3D design. I was looking through Thingiverse for ways to mount things to the back of the Steam Deck, and there are a lot of solutions for that, but very few that I found to be good ones. So I've started designing my own rail mount system that will use the mounting screws on the back to attach the rails. This will allow me to design mounts for USB-C port replicators and possibly battery banks. Because yes, the Steam Deck goes through a lot of battery. Now, I'm still in the design phase and not even the printing and testing phase yet, but I think it will work easy enough. For now, I have a left-right design, but I will eventually switch to an up-down design. I have high hopes for it, but I may also go with a completely different design. The design that I'm currently working on now would screw into the back of the casing to add rails. And I have my concerns because I would need to add longer screws. And anytime you're adding longer screws like that, it may cause problems if they end up being a little bit too long. Pushing through the screen, pushing through the circuit board. that would be terrible. Now, instead, I may switch to a snap-on backplate for the mounting rails. I haven't quite decided yet. There are some snap-on backplates that I've seen so far, but none with mounting rails, and that should be fairly easy to set up and use. Um, I also did some rather fun things with Pi-hole and WireGuard, but we're going to do that for the innards of the next show, I think. So I'll talk about that then.
So I was just going to say I've got the Galaxy Watch 4 Classic, and one of the things I found that is good, at least with the S24 Ultra, is that you can reverse wireless charge it. Because the battery life isn't the best. And I remember being out once and having really not charged it, and I was able to just put it on the back of the device and was able to get a couple of maybe 10-15% that way. I thought that was quite cool. So I wonder if that's a way of maybe that you could use that as a way of kind of charging. I don't know.
You were able to do the exact same thing with the Note 10 Plus and the Galaxy S3 watch. So it's actually a pretty cool feature, and yes, I have used it and I do enjoy it, but it's not really going to work for the setup that I have for my nightstand. Right now, I just have the watch stand and the wireless charging stand attached to each other. I need to spread them out a little bit, and I need to reduce the tolerances that holds the actual charger for the Galaxy 5 Pro that I have here.
Okay.
So just so it sits on there a little bit easier. Right now, I got to fiddle with it to make sure it gets into the right spot and make sure that the device is charging. So, God, I'm a nerd.
That's why we love you.
On to you, Moss.
Thank you. I've had a few days of work and spent some time figuring out how to arrange my time. Yesterday, the first episode of Distro Hopper's Digest was recorded. That is, the first one that didn't have me on the show. It has been a big weight off my little autistic shoulders, but it still feels like a loss. As the last episode of mintCast was recorded, I was off in the wilds of South Carolina doing a bit of singing and playing and eating good food with friends. I had a great time. I completely busted the screen on my Fire HD8 tablet and had to order a new one. It just came in Thursday and I got it set up with more difficulty than usual, but eventually it succumbed to my ministrations. I got out the cover that I used with my old one. Funny thing. The cover covered up the power supply plug. I had to get out a sharp blade and make adjustments to the case, one of the thick foam cases that most kids use on their tablets. I didn't expect to ever break it, but I apparently set it down face up and put a bottle on top of it, and it went crunch. Anyhow, I done it. I made the adjustments. I can plug it in. I'm fine. I'm still trying to figure out why I can't get Firefox to load in Bodhi. Nobody has gotten back to me on this issue. I wait a few minutes for my 3 tabs to load. None of them do. And I open Chromium, not my preferred method of working. I have not needed to use my T540p for a while. I need to keep it in case I return to Distro Hopper's Digest, as that is my test machine. I'm mostly either using my laptop or my M700 tiny studio machine, or my TV machine, which is also an M700. Speaking of my laptop, my T580 was gifted a new battery, one of the 61 Plus models. The Lenovo T580 has 2 batteries, one internal and the other swappable out the back. I only replaced the swappable one. The battery is a bit thicker than the original 61. I've been getting absolutely unbelievable battery life since getting this, to the point I was starting to wonder whether I traded my T580 for Apple M2 Silicon. Nope, it's still a Lenovo. But wow, with the old battery, I was getting 5 to 7 hours of life. With the new battery, I literally got 20 hours of life out of the first charge after draining it to 2% as recommended by the battery provider. And I've already had another 5 hours since recharging it, with Mint reporting that I have another 80% of life in it. Now, I mind you, this is just a 61 Plus. I did not shell out for the 61 Plus that would have given me 60 milliwatt hour battery or something like that. But just going from a 25 to a 45 watt has made a big difference. Just about everything else in my life is either reading or music. I'm reading 1 book to my best friend, 2 more to my wife, and about 6 to myself. We've been told not to talk about that, so I won't. I've been invited as a guest performer to Balticon, a science fiction and fantasy convention in Baltimore, Maryland, over the Memorial Day weekend. I will get to sit on a few panels as well as do a concert and hang out in the Filk rooms. Music all around. This was a great opportunity, as I might be able to sell a few CDs to the over 6,000 fans in attendance. I don't know how my autistic self is going to handle being around that many people in that small of a space. Although I don't know how small the space is. I've never been to Balticon. But it was still a great opportunity for me, and I'm glad to get to go.
So after I saw this thing about your T580, I started looking into T580s. I mean, they advertise it with Windows to have 27 hours of battery life. I mean, I have no idea how they do that.
Well, you'd have to have the 61 plus for that. My internal battery is only up to 73%, but I don't want to mess with that. To open up the case, you have to disable the internal battery first in BIOS.
So is it a case that it's just got a big battery and that's why it lasts? So have they
No,
got
I got the mid-size
optimization?
battery. I replaced the original small battery with a mid-size battery.
So I'm just wondering how it's got such great battery life. I mean, I'm happy, but I'm just wondering.
Yeah, I'm kind of wondering too.
I sent Dale a couple of pictures from my laptop while I was using it. One point, what did it say? I had 120 hours left or something like that.
It was something crazy, because you're going to have to give me this information, because I need to replace the T460 battery, and I need to replace my T56, the T560 that I have in my bedroom.
They might use the same battery. I'm not sure. The external battery might be a 61.
They might actually. I think they might actually.
So if you have a 61, the flat battery, there's a 61 plus and there's a 61 plus plus. The flat battery, I think, is 25 milliampere hours. The 61 plus is a 45 milliampere hours, and the 61 plus plus is a 60 milliampere hours. I keep getting that.
Is it labeled on there as a 61?
Yes, when you go look up the battery for that device, you'll start seeing people giving you 61s or 61 pluses or 61 plus pluses. Some will actually offer all three, and you have to select the right one.
Okay, I'm not going to go get it.
Let me see, T560. Now, one of the differences between the 560 and the 580 or 590, that like my wife has, is it has an internal battery plus the external swappable battery. I think the 560 only has the external.
So this is fantastic radio. Man looks at the back. Man looks on stuff on internet, and other man looks at back of laptop.
Hey, you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, no. It's
like truncate silence.
Stunned cognition.
That's funny. This says that there is an internal battery on the 560. Okay.
And
well, it's the external battery we're talking about.
And of course, they make all the labeling on the back of these batteries really good for a 50-year-old of bifocals.
If you can't read it, you're too old.
Yeah. Well, I haven't got my new glasses. I had my eye exam this week, but I haven't got the new glasses yet, so that's probably why. Oh, 68. Is that the number?
No, mine's a 61, so it's probably not the same one, but 68 is the right number.
Okay.
Ooh, interestingly, F-Droid now automatically updates your apps without you having to intervene.
How fun. Well, that's it for me. Anyone want to talk more, they can talk more, but we still have Majid to get done here.
Okay, then.
And Dale.
Yes. And so the school holidays have started here, the Easter break. This has meant the traffic on the roads is much less, and so commuting to work has been a breeze. It means I can leave a little bit later and still get to work vaguely on time, sort of. I had actually taken these 2 weeks off for the kids' holidays, but when it became clear we weren't going to be going anywhere or doing anything special, because it's Ramadan and also because general lack of money, I decided I'd work 1 week, but I'll keep the rest of the time off. I could do with just a couple of days of chillaxing, I hope, and catching up on sleep. I mean, the irony of being an anesthetist who has sleep problems is not lost on me. So I've just been chillaxing at home and enjoying it.
What it
I'm
means
still on-
is you're not self-medicating, or at
Well,
least
yeah.
not enough.
You have access
Yeah.
to the best drugs in the world, Majid. There's no excuse.
I'm not going to say anything more.
Moving on.
Moving swiftly on. So, I'm already in trouble already. So let's not say anything else. Okay. So I'm still on Mint on my ZenBook, Ubuntu on my work machine, and KD Neon on this podcasting box. And as much as I like Mint, and as I do, the distro hopper in me is starting to itch, and I'm thinking of the next distro. I did actually look at that Makulu Linux actually after the news spot, and it just looks a bit too garish for me now, considering I have astonishingly low standards on that. It must be really garish. Anywho, so yeah, if anybody's got any ideas, I'm sure Moss will say try Bodhi.
Garuda.
I tried Garuda once. I couldn't get it to bloody flash
I
properly.
need you to stay off Bodhi. I need somebody to be able to use Video Ninja and get Firefox to work.
Don't worry, it's not going to be on this the podcasting rig. Yeah. As we've talked about before in the past, when we've done our kind of innards on cloud storages and stuff like that, I've been using Mega as my cloud storage of choice for about a decade now. And it's worked far better than I initially thought it would, hence why I've stuck with it for so long. Recently, though, I've been having some sync issues, and it seems to be specific to Mint. I've got it on all of my devices, and for some reason, the Mint one will say that it's synced when it hasn't. And then when you start digging into it, it's got some old copies of files and stuff like that, but it still says that it's up to date. So I don't know why it's doing that. I'm not using any kind of flat pack or snap or anything like that. I'm using the deb package from the Mega repos. So I'm not sure why. I'd love to move to Proton Drive, as we've also discussed before. But there still isn't a Linux client. I mean, I think we talked about it last time, Joe, that they've got now their own Proton Mail desktop app, but there still isn't a Drive client for Linux. Apparently, there are some workarounds using rsync and stuff like that, but all of that sounds far too complicated. I have actually received a complimentary, as in free trial for 6 months, OneDrive 100 gig storage because I've got a Samsung phone. So I've kind of said, yeah, I'll take that. I take so many of these trials and then forget to cancel them. So this time whenever I get one of these, I actually put a reminder in my diary that, okay, on this day I need to cancel this, and this day I need to cancel that. Because you always have some kind of trials running. Like I've got Amazon Music trial running as well at the minute. I need to make sure that I'm not going to bother paying for that properly when it comes. Speaking of things coming up to the end, I've been using NordVPN and Surfshark for the last 2 years as my VPNs of choice. I know they're owned by the same company, but for some reason, Surfshark always worked a lot better. And I never really used NordVPN over the 2-year period. I don't know why. So I'm probably going to stick with Surfshark, and I'll just cancel the NordVPN. I used to use ExpressVPN, which I still think is probably the best, but it was more expensive, and I did kind of think, well, how much better? And as I said, Surfshark's worked really well, and the fact that it's a unlimited number of devices means that like my kids have use it if they want. And stuff like that. If anybody's got any other VPNs that I should check out, let me know. Email in the usual places. Going back to talking about Mint, my wife has a HP Elite tablet with keyboard, like a Surface type machine, which I bought for a few years ago. It was a good deal on eBay for a pretty modest machine. I mean, but then again, she has pretty modest needs because, to be honest, she does most of her phone stuff. Sorry, most of her computing stuff on her phone. And there's only a couple of things she actually needs to use a laptop for, and so I wasn't going to be breaking the bank on that one. But at the end of the day, I suppose it's a Windows 10 laptop, which is a couple of years old, and it started to slow down. And my wife was getting a little bit annoyed because she'd been giving it to my daughter to help with her schoolwork, and it was unusable, is what she said. Now, as I said, considering she has modest needs, I thought that was a pretty. It must be bad, is what I thought. As I said, it's a modest machine. It's got 4 gig of RAM. It's got a 128 gigs SSD, and it runs a Core M7 6Y57. Does anybody remember the Core M series?
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
was it 2013 to 2015? Around that time, it was Intel's way of making fanless. It was even in one of the MacBooks, if I remember correctly.
They were pretty good for the time.
I mean, I thought they were all right, actually,
No,
but
they were pretty good.
But at the end of the day, it is an 8-year-old chip, I suppose. I actually offered to buy her a new machine. I said, look, I can get it because I'd been looking at these ThinkPads anyway. I can get you a ThinkPad for not a huge amount. But I did say that maybe it's Windows that's the problem, and then if I put Linux on it, I'm sure it will be more usable and whatever. And to my surprise, she actually agreed. So I thought, well, what distro am I going to put on? I could go something light like Ubuntu Mate, but I suppose it wouldn't have the eye candy, and it also isn't the best with touch screens. You have to install Touch Egg or Touche, whatever it is called, separately. And as I will explain later on, these girls really are used to touch screens now. So I tried KDE Neon. Just because I still had the ISO around from when I put it on the podcasting box. And although it seemed to work all right, when I checked the system monitor, it was using about 3 gig of RAM out of a 4 gig machine. So I just kind of thought, no. Yes, Joe?
I'm going to say I don't usually recommend GNOME, but use GNOME.
So I did think of GNOME, and I did do a live USB of Ubuntu. Again, it was using quite a lot of memory. And I just thought, if it's idling and it's using about 3 gig, then, it's only a 4 gig machine after all. So I decided to try Mint 21.3 Edge ISO. I still had that hanging around from when I installed it on my ZenBook. I did make a few modifications to make it a bit more touch friendly. I remember you'd mentioned about how I think on some of your tablets, you like made the icons a bit bigger, put the spacing a little bit, and all that sort of jazz. So I did a bit of that, and my wife and daughter are really happy with it. I mean, they did complain the battery life wasn't great, but it wasn't that great anyway. I mean, it is a device that was made 8 years ago, 9 years ago, sorry, and I've not changed any batteries on it or anything like that. I'm not even sure if it's a replaceable battery. It probably is, but I don't know. I mean, it's a tablet, isn't it? But then my wife did come up to me and say, the touchscreen doesn't work. Is that a Linux thing? And I was kind of like, it was working when I installed it. Anyway, so I booted it up to find a perfectly working touchscreen. So I said, look, what do you mean exactly? What happened? Right? And it turns out that the browser that was on there, which is Firefox, I don't know if it's an older version or something, an ESR from the repos, because I suppose, Mint 21 is based on Ubuntu 2204. It wasn't particularly touch optimized. If you tried to scroll up and down, a web page, it would just highlight the text instead. If you, pressed on a link, it wouldn't open. You'd have to double click or whatever. So I just installed Brave on there because that's my kind of go-to Chromium-based browser, as I've mentioned before. Even though I'm using Vivaldi myself now, but I thought Brave seems to be a good choice. And now she's happy, and now it works. Now she can scroll up and down and press and everything like that. It is that thing about what you're used to. It becomes your, you get that muscle memory, and I know a lot of people say, what's the point of a touchscreen on a laptop and stuff like that. As I said, once you get used to it, it's what it is. I was a bit surprised with that. I mean, I suppose maybe if I started hunting around and started getting a newer version of Firefox, I'm sure they had a version where they said they'd improved touch functionality. I'm sure we mentioned it on the news at some point. But anyway, speaking of Firefox, I came across a fork of Firefox called Florp. I think that's how you pronounce it. It's a Japanese project which basically makes it the Vivaldi of Firefox browsers. It's got, integrated mail, integrated calendar, screenshot tools, or tab islands and workspaces and all that sort of stuff. It's also hardened apparently as well. So some of the things which you can do in Firefox anyway to improve the security and privacy, but aren't on by default. It has on them on by default. It is runs very slightly quicker than the original Firefox. It doesn't have multi-OS versions though. There isn't like an Android or even, there isn't any mobile apps. There is a Windows version, but there isn't any Android app. So I don't think it'll become my daily driver. I think I'll stick with the Chromium-based browsers I've mentioned, but it's just something interesting to have, I suppose.
The name Flirp, it just reminds me of Slurm from Futurama.
Oh, okay. Okay, fine. I went to visit my Islamic teacher the other day. While I was there, I was perusing his, significant book collection. I noticed his really quite antiquated laptop, which he uses for teaching and academic research and stuff. I mean, and I looked at it, and it made me feel really sad because it just looked like it was falling apart. So I did kind of mention it to him that, and he kind of went, but no, I really like it. It's got a big 17-inch screen. And as I said, he kind of uses it as a desktop replacement for his research and reading. I was kind of half tempted. Maybe I should just get him a new one that, but I don't have a really good history of tech interventions with him. What I mean by that is, like, once when he was looking for a new phone and I got him one and he liked it and stuff, but I think he never used it to its full capacity. Then there was I think he'd gone in for an operation or something like that. So a couple of us had got banded together and bought him a tablet so he could do his reading and stuff from his hospital bed. And he just complained that it was too small because 11 inches is too small to read, apparently. So anyway, I mean, he was always very grateful that that we'd bought him stuff and whatever. But I kind of you want people to use the stuff you give.
Get him a System 76 17-incher. That'll really blow him away.
Amazon had a spring sale, sort of. I mean, and did it in the UK. I can't remember. I don't know if they did it in the US as well. I managed to find some Galaxy Buds 2 Pro for about £100 off. So they're normally at $210, and it was going for about £120, so 90 quid off. There were some issues with delivery. I mean, I'm really getting annoyed with Amazon delivery people. I mean, they say that stuff has arrived when it hasn't. Things have been handed to a resident when it's been put in my bin. All sorts of stuff like that. I mean, I got them in the end. They're okay. They're fine. I don't think the sound quality is better than the Galaxy Buds FE that I had bought from the airport a couple of months ago, like I'd mentioned. I actually realized one of the reasons why it sounded a bit not as. So when you read the reviews, they talk a lot about the fact that it's got like high res codecs, and the fact that the quality is much better and the ANC is much better and this, that, and the other. And I was like listening to them, and I even got my son to listen, and I said, look, these don't sound better than the other ones, do they? It's not just me, is it? And I'm not an audiophile, right? And I realized what it was. It's this 360 audio thing that is an option on some of these high-end buds. Actually worsens the sound quality. It's fine. It's good for if you're watching something. So I was watching the Three Body Problem with those headphones in, and that was good. There's knocks happening from the right and the left, or people, you can hear things behind you. So that's all right, I suppose. But it does, yeah, it does make the sound quality worse. It sounds just like another gimmick, doesn't it? Really?
Well, if you're using audio that's designed for that 360, then yeah, it does sound good. Much like, modern TV shows, modern movies, or gaming. But it's not going to do anything but add garbage to, listening to an audiobook or listening to just music.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think I learned that now. I learned that now. I'm still mulling over whether to keep them. I mean, it was a good deal. I've spoken ad nauseum about my S24 Ultra on this podcast, so much so that I'm starting to wonder whether people are going to think I'm paid by Samsung. I'm not, unfortunately. However, if Samsung do want to pay me ridiculous amounts of money to promote their products, I have no problem with that whatsoever. No problems at all.
You'll have to split that with me because obviously,
Oh yeah. Of course. Anyway, and I know it's going to be a real petty pet peeve, but I was getting a little bit annoyed by the horizontal scrolling in the app drawer. I was thinking about this, and I think apart from Samsung and Apple, nobody else does it. Everybody has moved over to a vertical scrolling, paradigm, whether it's Pixels, Oppos, Xiaomi's, OnePluses, all of those. And I mean, I've used Samsung phones, but for the last couple of years, it's been non-Samsung. It's been OnePluses and Xiaomi's and things like that. And it got a little bit annoying, actually. You get used to it. Again, it's these things of muscle memory, and you get used to a particular way of doing things. Now, in the past, you could use Good Lock, which is their kind of uh, it's like the settings on steroids type of thing, which they can't bundle in as stock, but it's still got all you have to get it from the Galaxy store or whatever. But anyway, and you could kind of set it with that, but for some reason, and it's not just me, because the other tech websites, Android website, have noticed it as well. It's not there as an option, to move to a vertical app drawer. So even though it's been a while, I installed a Nova Launcher. I used to use Nova Launcher a lot back in the day, as it were, and I'd even paid for the Prime version. I think is what they used to call it. And as I said, yeah, I used to use it quite a few years ago. But as I said, last couple of years, most Android distributions that the phones come with, worked fine. So I didn't really feel the need. It would have been nice if I could import the layout I already had on the Samsung launcher, the One UI launcher. But it didn't take that long to set up. I actually found that I did have some Nova backup files, but they were from 2019 and 2020 when I was running a Note 9. And so I did actually try them out, and it just comes when it comes up, keeps telling you all the apps you haven't got, and I was like, oh, things have changed. I have some apps I use now, don't use now. Slight nostalgia, I suppose. Finished The Night Agent on Netflix. My wife really liked it. I thought it was all right. I mean, it's predictable. It's the kind of thing you switch your brain off for. She really likes the spy genre, so I'm looking around for any recommendations for the next thing to watch. I found this thing called Murder Mubarak on Netflix. I think it's an Indian remake of Knives Out. So I thought that might be fun to watch. I started the Three Body Problem on Netflix. It is really good. I feel I should still complete the book though. I've also been enjoying Invincible on Prime. It's got a surprising amount of character development and pathos, which I wasn't expecting. It's also got a fantastic soundtrack. Second probably only to the Umbrella Academy. And there's a good couple of playlists that you can get on Spotify of all the songs. Really good tracks actually. The annual Indian Premier League cricket thing is back, so the house is going to be cricket mad for the next few weeks. My team is never going to win though, so I've just accepted that as part of life. We are cat sitting again, this time a 10-month-old black British short hair called Sheru, who we've got for 3 weeks while the family that look after him have gone to Pakistan, I think, for the Easter holidays. And it does make her really happy. You should just see the kind of joy that she has when she's playing with the cat, It's priceless, isn't it? I just wanted to have a quick rant about the state of NHS dentistry in the UK at the minute. I'm having a recurring tooth infection, and it's almost impossible to get an appointment unless you're going private. And I can understand why, because dentists are getting paid much less for an NHS patient than if they're charging the patient directly, privately, or through insurance. But it's still annoying. And I'm kind of wondering why we're seeing a lot more. I've noticed that we're getting a lot more complications of dental infections in the hospital. I wonder if that's the reason. Or I might just be, I'm just in a mood because my tooth hurts. Anyway, I think I've rambled on for enough.
I wanted to say I tried watching Invincible the first season, and before I got done with the first season, it was just too much gratuitous violence for me, which is weird because it's a cartoon, but you get tired of seeing blood splattered all over the screen.
It's a pretty violent show, yeah. But I was going to recommend for you and your wife to try Will Trent.
Okay. I'll have to have a look, check that out.
It's actually a police procedural as opposed to a spy, but I still think it'll come across well.
Okay. Is that on Netflix as well, or?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Let's have a look. Man searches stuff on phone. More fantastic radio. Okay, well, it's not on Netflix. I'm sure it might be on somebody's Plex server.
Mine. Oh.
Yeah, I was
we don't
trying
have to pay for our airtime here, Majid. Stop worrying about it.
All right. Anyway, go ahead, Dale.
And I'd like to give the +1 on the Nova launcher because I have it on my Pixel.
Ditto.
I like it much better than the Pixel launcher.
Mm-hmm. So way more configurable.
It is, yeah. It's sort of like the plasma of
yes,
Android launchers.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. That's a good analogy, actually.
I used to use quite a bit of Nova Launcher, probably about the same time you did back in the day, Majid. So,
well, my wanderings are a bit abbreviated. You can listen to Distro Hoppers to get the unabridged version, and you'll understand the reasons when you listen to that episode that will be coming out here soon. So, I did some more work on my main server. I replaced Debian with TrueNAS Scale, which is based on Debian. Despite how I prefer using command line functions to do administrative tasks, I do like the web GUI that they have. My friend Josh helped me with installing and configuring the containers for Plex and Tailscale because I don't want to say I was begrudgingly going to use them or reluctant to use them, but I just wanted to see what all the cool kids were doing. I later installed Nextcloud on my own after watching a YouTube tutorial on it. It still needs configured, but at least it's installed and running. And I did update it a few days ago. And it's kind of neat how the redeploying of the containers is orchestrated on Scale. So it's pretty cool. I wanted to increase the access time on my Plex media server, so I created a ZFS pool with two 1 terabyte Crucial MX500 SSDs. The performance difference is mind-blowing. With the combination of a 12-core 24-thread Ryzen 9 3900X and the two SSDs in a stripe, or in another case, RAID 0 on the old nomenclature. It took less than 2 minutes to import 350 movies and a dozen or so TV series seasons. I think it's about 1.2 or so terabytes of media. I wasn't timing it, but I know it wasn't any longer than 2 minutes. I had initially thought it failed because it stopped so soon. The playback on my Roku was much quicker compared to the previous spinning drives, obviously, even though it's there was 4 of them, together. And seeking backwards and forward, was pretty, it didn't matter if I was seeking ahead 10, 20, 30, 40 seconds a minute. It was just like snap, play, snap, play. I mean, sometimes I'm thinking some of it was this Wi-Fi latency where it would take up to a second. But that was me nerding out on the performance of the of my server. I when I did do this reorchestration of everything, I actually connected it to the Plex service, and I have a couple friends on there to access my media, and I haven't heard anything good or bad from them, so I'm assuming it's working fine. I think um, it'll just take some time to get used to it. I haven't tried it myself remotely, but I usually watch YouTube when I'm at work because it uses less mobile data. And I'm also going to have to get 2 more SSDs to mirror these two because a stripe is a dangerous thing, though it's not as dangerous when you have backups of the data. It's just more of an inconvenience of recreating it if it does fail. I'm also trying Tailscale for the first time. It surprisingly works as advertised, which how can you say that about other products that we have in the world? I don't think very many. At least for the basic features of the service. I enabled the exit node, which allows me to use my local network as a VPN endpoint. That works pretty well, but it limits my speed because of the upload speed of my cable modem. I still haven't opted to the faster speed yet. There is an option to enable local LAN access as if I was home, but I haven't really got into that part of it. That much. I've used it a few times. My phone was able to use the local host names listed in my Pi-hole, though my laptop couldn't resolve the names. I figured out that it was the systemd resolved service that Pop! OS is using. When I would manually edit the /etc/resolve.conf file and put it in my Pi-hole's DNS IP numbers, I was able to resolve my local host names. I noticed the systemd resolved rewrites my /etc/resolve.conf when each network connection is connected. I haven't dived into the resolved service to figure out if there's a more automated solution to that yet. And also the local LAN access option. I'm not sure if that would correct my problems or not.
Cool. Honestly, it sounds similar to what's some of the things that's going to be on the show next time when I talk about setting up the Pi-hole and WireGuard on an x86 system.
That'd be cool. I'm looking forward to that. I like home lab type of stuff. I just don't get a lot of time to do it.
I've been running that for a few years right by now, the Pi-hole and WireGuard, and it just, once it's set up, it works so good for so long that you forget how it was set up. So I'm gonna have to go tinkering with it before the next episode just so I can remember how I set that whole thing up. Because
Do you have it set up on a Pi, or do you have it set up in Docker? Or
it's on a Pi. It's installed with the Pi VPN script, which sets everything basically
it makes it super easy.
And it's still bare metal.
Yeah, I wasn't able to use that particular script, so that's a large portion of the conversation next time.
Right on. And I think I used a similar tool to set up the WireGuard, now that I think about it.
Yeah, Pi VPN.
Yeah, Pi VPN. So So PyVPN and the setup script for
The
Pi-hole.
Pi-hole, yeah,
Yeah.
you just curl the Pi-hole script and pipe it to bash and hit some things. Yeah, some people don't like that because,
Well, whatever.
arbitrary code execution.
I think
What
people
could go wrong?
I suppose, but I mean, you could go and look and see what it is and then pipe it or download it and run it, I don't know.
All right, let's get on to these innards.
Let's do it.
Linux innards. Well, this time in the Linux innards, we have data backup with the Mint backup tool. And this is my my suggestion to the team this week, and they all were happy to not have to do something else and have me do the work, which I was happy to do.
You could have said anything.
Yeah, yeah, and it's
Saved our bacon.
Yeah, it takes quite a bit of effort, but I'd used this recently when I reinstalled my LMDE because of reasons. Yeah, kids, don't mess with the repos in the apt on Mint. It doesn't like it. Any case, backing up your data has always been important. It's even more important these days considering all the videos and pictures we create, not to mention our music and documents. In addition to backing up and restoring data, reinstalling your distro along with your packages is also time consuming. The Linux Mint developers created a backup restore utility to accomplish both data backup and a list of installed packages. After you open the backup tool, and it's actually called backup tool, so if you just smack the start super key or the super key, just type in backup and it'll be one of the options. There are two sets of options when it loads: personal data and software selection. The former's for backing up and restoring your settings and contents of your home directory. The latter is for creating a backup of the list of installed applications so that you can use that to reinstall them. There is one caveat about using the software section. This is something I found out when I was doing my own system. The software only will list anything that's when you use the Mint Software Center. Apparently, it has its own cache of what you've installed using it. So if you went into app like I do and do it in the terminal, it's not going to have any clue that you installed it.
I noticed things a little bit differently there. Now, because I have used this backup tool, and like when I redid my server, even the stuff that I installed from apt, it did record those, but it would not always reinstall them on the restore. But it would give me a list of all the things that did not get installed, so then I could go and add the proper repos again and then install them manually.
That's interesting because
Is it because it's using package kit on the back end or something like that, maybe, and so it can only see what's been explicitly installed through the graphical package manager?
No, because like I said, even stuff I had installed from the command line from different repos that were not included with Mint, it recorded. It just would not allow me to restore them because it was only using the Mint repos. So I don't know what our difference was there, but I had it back up like everything. And another thing that I noticed was that while it backed up the applications, you had to use the home backup to back up all of your settings.
Yeah, because the test I did was I installed something that I hadn't installed before and really didn't have any interest in, and reran it, and it showed it, and it was the only one listed. Then I exited out, went into apt, and installed something else that I'd never installed before, and it didn't have it listed. So I don't know. I have no clue. I tried it a few times, and it was consistent in my
'Cause
testing.
I almost never use the graphical installer to get software. I always go down to the command line, and I was
Yeah.
still able to, get all my applications backed up and restored in most cases, except for things that were in separate repos.
So I do have a solution, in case you have the same problems when you try this on your computer. And to save a list of installed packages, you can go into the terminal, and I believe you have to put sudo in front of this, if I'm not mistaken. But if it doesn't work, try sudo in front of it. I forgot to put that in here. But you type in sudo and then dpkg, dpackage, and then dash git dash selections. Then you're going to use the caret, and it's going to be pointing to the right. So the arrow part's going to the right. And then you just give it a name. And the default I used in the example in the show notes is mylist.ls or list. You can call it, I think, whatever you want, as long as it's .lsit. I think that's just what Mint defaults to. It will also not save your flat packs, even if you did install them using the Software Center. I'm not sure if Joe had experienced that or not.
I didn't notice it, but I don't use a lot of flat packs. I don't think it did restore my flat packs.
Okay.
Wouldn't it work though if you did a home directory restore with the flat packs? Wouldn't you be getting all the flat? If you was restoring the entire home directory, wouldn't that pull down the flat packs with it? Because that's where they get installed in a .var.
I'm not sure, because I think Flatpak lives in the lib folder structure, and I think there may be a folder structure in your home directory. So I've never really noticed that when I've done restores, but it's been so many times that I haven't noticed it. But that'd be something to test anyway.
Yeah.
But I do have a solution for that too, and it's using the same similar what I showed with the using the DPKG, which is actually the backend for apt. Apt is basically just a wrapper using dpackage. But in any case, if you want to make a list of your installed Flatpaks, you would type, and this doesn't need sudo, you just type Flatpak and then list, then hyphen or dash app, and then a space, then dash columns equal app, and then do the same arrow caret. It's the shift period on my keyboard. I just called it flatpak.list, and I just saved it .list just for because I named the other one .list because of what Mint was using. And that columns is kind of neat because there's also other things you can sort by. If you do flatpak list and dash help, and it'll give you a whole list of options. But that will make a column list of all of your installed Flatpaks. Then I create a bash script with the Flatpak command to install with that list, a space between each one. And if you're really handy with awk and sed, you'd probably be able to do this automatically. I'm not that good with that. So I just would have to just put them into a file and just manually move them with spaces in between. And to do that, you just open up a text file and you just do the hashtag !USR/bin/bash, then press enter. Then you put in the command flatpak space install, and you can also put a -y, which it will not prompt you to press Y when it pulls up the list. And I gave an example in the show notes of like org.standardnotes, and you need to put a space, then org.signal. Capital S and signal. And basically all of your applications need to be in a single line, like that one with a space. And by the way, the Mint backup will not use this list file. This is just for our uses for restoring stuff. Now, the words folders and directories are used interchangeably in the Mint backup utility and in these innards, because I used to call them directories, and then somehow everyone started calling them folders about maybe 10, 15 years ago. So I just, whatever comes out of my mouth. Selecting backup now using the personal data option asks you where you want to save this backup. The default will be the folder called backup in the documents folder in your home folder. The drop-down menu will show you the folders in your home folder. If you want to select a different location, click on Other. A Nemo file manager will open, and you can click where you want to save to. I would recommend an external USB hard drive enclosure, a share on another computer, or your NAS. After you're done, you click Forward. The next window is where you select files and folders you want to exclude from the backup. If your backup location is mounted under your home folder, it must be excluded. This is so that you are not trying to back up the backed up files. Any other files or folders you don't want included can be added by clicking on Exclude Files or Exclude Directories.
Recursive backups are not fun.
Yeah, it's turtles all the way down.
And I never have to exclude my download folder because I always, redirect my download folder to an external drive anyway.
Oh.
Just, for space saving on my SSDs.
Yeah, that's actually probably a good idea for word leveling. Now, if you have multiple things you want to select, holding down the Control key while clicking on each item will allow you to select multiple files. And I personally exclude my downloads directory because I usually delete them or move them somewhere else.
Quick question. Do you have to do anything specific for hiddens? Like all the configs? Because I vaguely remember having to do something to see all the dot files.
That's in the next. Okay.
The next. I jumped ahead. My bad.
Yeah, that's a good point though, because those are important. But after you select your exclusions, you click Forward again, and the next window is where you actually can include and exclude hidden files and folders. They are not included by default, which in my opinion is a bit of a miss. I don't know why it was not included, and I'll explain in my reasoning. The beauty of Linux is that the configuration for all your applications are in these hidden files and folders. Restoring them saves quite a bit of time. Yeah, almost. Yeah. There's sometimes some stuff is outside of the home folder, which is kind of annoying. I think I've learned that with the some of the mouse settings in Mint are not in your home folder.
Audio Bookshelf stores some stuff under like /lib or something like that when it comes to config. So
Yeah, it is kind of annoying when applications do that, but you can do what you do here. Restoring them saves quite a bit of time. You're not reconfiguring your applications. I mean, once you reinstall the applications, it's as if you never uninstalled it or reinstalled. I would recommend including the hidden files option. For the hidden folders, I would not include the .cache folder. It is used by applications for temporary files, and that could be quite large at times, depending on when the last time you rebooted. Otherwise, I would include all the remaining hidden folders and hidden files. They are files and folders that have period in front of their names. They are referred to as dot files. Once finished, you click apply, and now the backup tool will begin backing up the files and the folders and settings. As a tip, Nebo doesn't show these by default. To show them, you press Control H and they will be displayed, and pressing Control H once again will hide them. The backup file will be named year, month, day, time, backup.tar with hyphens in between all those words. If you are familiar with tar, you can use this file to do incremental updates to it, though that is beyond the scope of this innards. If anyone's interested in learning more, let us know. We can do another innards on it. When you use the restore option, select the backup you want to restore. The next question is if you want to restore only the missing files or restore all of the files. Once it is done, it will report your files were successfully restored. Now you can exit the backup tool, though it doesn't tell you that you can exit now. I'm just pointing that out because there's no obvious thing. It just, I guess they assume that you know that you can exit the backup utility. Using the software selection option is much simpler and quicker. Click on Backup Now. The following window will have a list of applications you want to include. Keep in mind these are not the physical packages. The backup tool creates a list and uses that list to reinstall them. After selecting all or some of the applications, you click the forward button again. The next window reports your software selection was saved, and it shows the path where it saved it. One thing I don't understand is why the personal data option is excluding the document/backup folder, but the software selection option is saving the list to the documents/backup folder, which is under your home folder, which would mean that your list wouldn't be backed up. So with that bombshell, I would recommend moving that file to another folder that you are backing up. To restore the software selection, select the list that you want to use and click forward. It will report when it is finished with the installation of the packages. Now I'm going to give some more backup tips to make reconfiguring your fresh install much easier.
Okay. Let me jump in here real quick. I was kind of reading ahead a little bit, and I want to mention this
All right.
as important. You you kind of mentioned these two in reverse order. You need to do, when you're doing your restore, you need to do your software first and then your data after. Otherwise, all of your config files, all your dot folders, could potentially get overwritten when the application is installed.
Good
I
point.
did have that problem. So it is important, software first, and then the folders afterwards, including all of the ones that are not covered by the software restore tool. So like the list that Dale created, you would have to make sure that that software list was installed before you restored all of your dot files.
Yeah, that is a very good point.
That's it.
All right. Yeah, thanks. That was good. Let's see. Oh, there we are. I am going to give some more backup tips to make reconfiguring your fresh install much easier. The applets have the ability to export and import their settings. They are saved in a JSON file. That's a .json, which is a special formatted text file. To export the settings, do the following. Right-click on the applet and then click on Configure. Once it's open, you will see 3 horizontal lines in the upper right-hand corner of the window. It is just below the window decorations, the minimize, maximize, close window buttons. It is called the hamburger menu. I have no idea why. Some people think it looks like a hamburger. I think it looks like 3 horizontal lines. But go figure. Click on them. From the list of options, choose Export to a File. That will open a Nemo File Manager window to choose where you want to save the file. I would save it in a file that gets backed up, and so you don't have to worry about it going into something that's not backed up. To restore these settings, click on the same hamburger menu, and from the options, click on Import from a File. Select the file you want to restore and click Open. After a few seconds, it will have imported the file. Now, you may need to right-click on the applet and select Refresh or log in and log out and log in again. Some applets don't have a refresh, so you will have to log out and log back in again. And if you've got a lot of applets, especially like a weather applet, or if you've got like a CPU temperature monitor applet and you've got all the device IDs for your graphics card and for your SSDs and everything in there, you don't have to type all that stuff back in again. It's in the JSON file, so this automatically appears, which I just wish I knew this years ago. I was just poking around this when I reinstalled it, before I reinstalled everything, last month. And I'm like, wow, this saves a lot of time, especially with weather applets, because I have weather applets of where other people I know live, because I'm a weather nerd and I just like seeing what weather is like in other parts of the country. So I hope this walkthrough of the Mint backup tool was helpful along with my other suggestions. If you have any questions, my contact information will be given at the end of the podcast. You can also email the podcast, as I am an avid listener and will respond to just the same. So we have any other comments or questions?
So that's pretty comprehensive, actually. I was just going to mention, is the official position of the Linux Mint team to still do nuke and paves when you're doing a fresh install, or are they really pushing the Mac backup tool nowadays? Just because I don't have as much experience with Mint as you guys do.
I think if anybody were being honest, they would probably say that it's probably always going to be best to nuke and pave, but realistically, not everybody's going to be able to do that, and you want to give them an upgrade path as well. And so while it exists, the upgrade path to go from one major version to another, I think anybody would agree that you're always going to get a better experience by doing a nuke and pave, just because of the cruft that you build up, especially if you're an experimental kind of user. Maybe a little less. It's a little less the case for somebody that sets up a machine, uses the things they use, and then doesn't play around with it much beyond that. But eventually, even that kind of person would probably want to nuke and pave. You don't hear a lot of chatter about it from the important people, but when you do, it's like, well, it's probably a good idea to do it anyway, but if you can't, then just use the upgrade path.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still, generally speaking, nuking and paving. Part of it is because I've got my data is the stuff that I am most concerned about, rather than my applications and preferences and stuff like that. That sort of stuff I can set up relatively quickly. So as long as my data is safe, and I'm trying to follow the 3-2-1 on data storage, 3 copies in 2 places, one of which is offsite, then it's less of an issue for me. But sometimes you do. I mean, it's less with the computers, it's more with phones and stuff. Sometimes you do kind of switch, and you kind of like, oh my god, I've got to set everything all up again. So these are useful utilities, and it's good to have had a good comprehensive run through as to how to do it. So thanks, Dale.
Yeah, I generally keep my data all not on my primary hard drive where my operating system is. So nuke and pay for me usually isn't a problem. It's just when I did my server, I had so many years of getting it set up just the way that I wanted, that I wanted to do the backup and restore. But in the end, some of the settings caused some issues, and I just ended up nuking and paving and rebuilding it all anyway. So nuke and pave.
You're muted.
Londoner just sent a message while I was going through the tutorial that you don't need the sudo for the depackage command. I didn't think it did, but I couldn't remember because it's not needing to access anything that needs, it's not changing anything that needs root access. So you can just type the dpkg command without the sudo.
And I think that might be a uniquely Mint thing too, not needing that sudo command. I don't know if they've done a little. They've added something to the sudoers or the. Of course, you would probably only use this tool on Mint anyway, but that not having to use a sudo command, that might be a uniquely Mint thing.
Very possible. Now, on to vibrations from the ether.
Okay, the first one is from ZenFloater2, and he was mentioning some things that Apple had said about Android, and you'll hear them say it. Apple is more secure than Android because it's not open source. And there is a link in the show notes. I think the link got truncated. Oh no, it's still all there. It just shows it's truncated. So the link in the show notes does work. You can click on that and watch the video where they say it. So
Well, they would say that, wouldn't they? Their direct competitor is open source to some degree.
it's kind of like when Microsoft said that Linux was a cancer.
Yeah, I suppose. I think in this
Or
case,
or that Linux was all communists.
Well, there is a little truth in that. I get accused of that a lot. Like, and I hear it just like this. You telling me about this Linux thing, it sounds like you're a socialist. That ain't true, is it, Bill? I don't know, it might be. And then
Are
they
we
don't
back
know what else
to
to
the
say.
funny
to
voices again.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he actually has a right to make that funny voice.
Yeah, fair point.
I get a lot of crap for that, but then they're perfectly happy to use it because it doesn't cost anything. So behold the hypocrisy.
All right, the next one is from Mikey Doherty, and we do owe him an apology, and we will get to that.
Yeah.
He says, "Hi guys, I've been a listener to mintCast for many, many years. I just wanted to clarify a few comments. I'm involved in Solus and actually helped to rescue the project from doom when it was nearly lost to the downtime. I serve as TCS lead and am responsible for getting Serpent OS ready for Solus to rebase upon it. I'm unsure what Clear Linux has to do with things that was simply a job at Intel, which honestly paid below the market rate. I'm quite happy with my current employment at MZLA working on Thunderbird since March 2023. Lastly, please be aware that as I am an Irish traveler, remarks such as digital nomad of no fixed abode could be considered highly offensive, not to mention legally racist. If you have queries regarding my work in future, please note I'm easy to find and always been known for being approachable and personable. So this will eliminate the need for guesswork rather than research. Many thanks, Ike Doherty." Now, and then I did respond on the email, and I know Majid did respond with a very eloquent email as well, right as we were starting the show. But I said, sorry if we said anything to offend you. We most definitely did not mean to do that. We've always appreciated your work and would love to have you on the show sometime if you would like, whatever topic you choose. And I did also do some initial research into the whole um, Irish traveler, and I could see where that would be an offensive statement. And I don't think I was the one that made that statement, but I did. I didn't say anything about it at the time, but mostly that's ignorance on my part. So
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm putting my hands up on this one. This was, my mistake. I also replied back apologizing for any offense caused. Firstly, nice to know you listen to the show. More importantly, would like to say I wasn't aware of your traveler heritage. If I'd known, I probably wouldn't have made such a comment. My intention was more about the different projects you've been involved in. I sincerely apologize for any offense caused and would like to assure that nothing racist was intended, although on reflection, I can see how it can be seen. And as someone who's also of an ethnic minority, I can understand the sensitivities around all this. And I think I speak for everyone, when I say that, we appreciate your work as everybody else on mintCast, and would love to have you on the show and would love to discuss. And yeah, apologies once again. Yeah, my bad. Put my hands
I
up.
would also like to touch base on this because I have a tendency to talk about things and I just go off the cuff like research. What's research? So that is my fault. And I've censored myself a few times on the show. And I apologize if I've upset you, Ike.
So I'm going to address the elephant in the room. Oh my God, Ike listens to mintCast? Wow, cool.
it's always great to hear from your heroes.
For real. I was listening to him when, he was, I think the first show I started listening to as a podcast, meaning not on YouTube or anything, was Late Night Linux in the early days. Well, the very first days. Episode 1 with him and Jesse.
Ike, Chris, Popey.
Yeah.
Was he?
No, I'm talking about Joe Resington and him and Jesse
Linux,
and Phelan.
Was that when it was still called Linux Luddites? Was that then?
That was right after Linux Luddites. It was.
He was a regular on Linux. Popey back on the show since that one time that I had to miss because I was in Georgia at the time.
As soon as there's
he
something,
said he'd be back sometime, and he never did.
I got to have an excuse to ask these people on the show, and he's not really. I'm waiting for him to say the right thing on the one show that he's on now to be interesting enough or relevant enough for our show, and then ask him to come on. So
Who, Popey?
yeah, Popey.
Oh yeah, because he's on Linux Matters, isn't it?
Right.
Which is basically the old Ubuntu podcast again, really. Because
It is, but it's more generalized, and I mean,
I haven't even heard that one since they came
So
back.
it's another one of the late night Linux family of episodes.
yeah,
And it's got 3 of the people, including Popey, who used to be on the Ubuntu podcast before that wound up.
yeah.
Martin
What's the name of it
Wimpress.
again?
Anyways, Ike, we love you.
What's
Yeah,
Come on the
name of
show.
it again, please?
Linux Matters.
Okay.
Yes, and I can vouch for his sentiments about being approachable and everything, because I used to chat with him and Josh and the other guys in the Solus team back, probably a good 7-8 years ago in IRC, and they were a great bunch of guys to hang out and gals to hang out with, and I really hope that you do come on and talk with us, because I think the audience would like to hear from you too.
You're here. And I didn't do nothing wrong, but I'm sorry too, Ike. Because I'm
Since we're all
sure
apologizing.
I'm sure if you
It's
could,
anonymous.
let's just
Spoken
put it in
like
the
a
bank
Midwest
because
Catholic. Oh wait, that could have been my bad.
Yeah, because I don't think I said anything back, because I even mentioned in our team chat on Discord. I don't remember what I said. I'm going to have to go back and watch the
Re-listen to the
stream.
show. Yeah.
But I do
Well,
remember
no, I do
saying,
remember we were talking about Ike, and I do remember that the digital nomad comment had come up, and maybe some of the other stuff that we had also said could have been construed as, not very good things to say or somewhat defamatory. But we probably shouldn't have, and I apologize, and we really did not mean to offend. So let's move on. Check this out.
Yep.
now let's go to check this out. Safe Eyes from Londoner. Safe Eyes is a simple tool to remind you to take periodic breaks for your eyes. This is essentially for anyone spending more time on the computer to avoid eye strain and other physical problems. The features: short breaks with eye exercises, long breaks to change physical position and to warm up, strict break for those who are addicted to the computer,
No.
do not disturb when working with full screen applications, for example, watching a movie, notifications before every break, optional audible alert at the end of the break, option to lock screen after long breaks. You just have to remember your password if you do that. Smart pause and resume based on system idle, multi-monitor support, plugins to utilize Safe Eyes, elegant and customizable design, and the website is slgobinath.github.io/Safe Eyes. And then there are installation instructions in the show notes, which has you add the apt repository, and you do the sudo apt update and the sudo apt install Safe Eyes. Housekeeping and announcements. Thank you for listening to this episode of mintCast. If you see something you'd like to hear about, tell us. Send us an email at mintcast@mintcast.org. Join us live on YouTube. post at the mintCast subreddit, chat with us on Telegram and Discord, or post directly at https://mintcast.org. Next episode, 2 p.m. U.S. Central Time on Sunday, April 14th, 2024. Get mintCast converted to your time zone.
With a link in the show notes.
Next roundtable live stream, 2 p.m. U.S. Central Time on Saturday, April 6th, 2024. Get the roundtable live stream converted to your time zone. Next roundtable live stream, 2 p.m. U.S. Central Time on Saturday, April 20th, 2024. Get your time zone converted.
With a link in the show notes.
Live stream information is at mintcast.org/livestream. And to wrap up,
Well, if you like the sound of my voice, you can catch me on a couple of my other podcasts. I'm on tllts.org. That's the Linux Link Tech Show. I'm on Linux Lugcast, which is linuxlugcast.com. You can send me an email directly, jb@mintcast.org, or you can buy me a coffee on Ko-fi, link in the show notes. And I'm usually the one that responds when you send emails to mintcast@mintcast.org. Boss.
Well, I'm still doing Full Circle Weekly News. You can contact me at bardmoss@pm.me. My Mastodon is at zyvala@hosttux.social. Bill?
Well, you can email me, bill@mintcast.org. I'm bill_h on Discord. I'm at wchauser3@fostodon.org on the Mastodon. Also, check out my 2 other podcasts, Linux OTC and 3 Fat Truckers. Majid?
So you can get me while I'm redoing my equality and diversity training at the hospital, so I don't make any more racist remarks. No, sorry. You can get a hold of me on Dr. Majid at mintcast.org, at Atypical Doctor 870 on Twitter, but to be honest, I'm not really on there. Atypical Doctor on Instagram, and the Atypical Doctor podcast on Spotify, as well as Linux OTC.
Eric could not join us this episode, but you can hear him on the Linux OTC podcast, as well as the Linux Saloon and the Linux Lugcast streams and the Distro Hoppers Digest podcast. If you'd like to get in touch with him, he can be reached at eric@mintcast.org, on Discord as Eric_Adams, Telegram, Eric Adams, Matrix at ESA1975, and Mastodon at Eric Adams. Links are in the show notes. And as for me, you can hear me about every month to 5 weeks on Distro Hoppers Digest podcast. And I can be reached by email at dale_cdl@pm.me. I am also on Telegram and Discord as Dale_CDL. Before we leave, we want to make sure to acknowledge some of the people who make mintCast possible. Bill Hauser for our audio editing, archive.org for hosting our audio files, Hobstar for our logo, and KnitRD for the animated Discord logo, Londoner for our time syncs and various other contributions, Bill Hauser for hosting the server for which runs our website maintenance, and the Nextcloud server on which we host our show notes and raw audio, the Linux Mint development team for the fine distro we love to talk about. Thanks, Clem and
Thanks,
Clem.
Clem.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Clem.
And Co. and wrap.
Oh, and I just want to say, if we offend you, anybody, please just email us and tell us.
Yeah,
We try not to.
we really don't want to, unless you deserve it. And if you deserve it, we'll tell you that too.
Yeah, but that's very few people. I can think of like one or two off the top of my head.
Yeah,
and-
because usually if we don't like you, we're not going to talk about you at all. You ain't going to get no airtime.
right.
None.